All right, let's do this. Time for a deep dive into the Honest Company's latest quarterly report.
The one that came out at the end of September.
Yep, September 30th, 2024 to be exact. Now, this thing, it's dense, lots of financial data, but
That's where we come in.
exactly. We're going to break it all down, highlight what really matters.
Think of us as your financial translators,
Yeah,
turning that jargon into plain English.
love that. Okay, so right off the bat, the report says Honest is still considered both a smaller reporting company and an emerging growth company.
Too mouthful, for sure.
What do those even mean?
So basically, it gives them a bit of leeway when it comes to all the official reporting they have to do for the SEC.
So, like, easier rules?
Kinda. Think of it like training wheels while they're still, growing and figuring things out.
Gotcha. Less paperwork, more focus on the actual business. Makes sense. So speaking of the business, what's the overall financial picture looking like?
Well, there's a pretty big change in how they're reporting their revenue this time around.
Oh, how so?
They've moved away from breaking it down by all those separate product categories like, uh, diapers.
Wipes, skincare, all that.
Exactly. Now it's just two main buckets. Direct-to-consumer, which is mainly their online sales, and then everything else is lumped together as like retail and third-party e-commerce.
Huh, interesting. So no more separate numbers for each product line. Why the change?
It's all part of that big 2023 transformation initiative they did.
Oh, right.
Remember that. They're trying to leverage the power of the Honest brand as a whole.
Instead of focusing on individual products.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just about clean diapers anymore. We're about an honest lifestyle.
Ah, I see. So is this one brand strategy working? What's the revenue saying?
Well, for the quarter itself, revenue is up by 15.2%.
Okay, not bad. That's pretty healthy growth.
It is. But for the year to date, it's only up 9.6%.
So a bit of a slowdown. Is that something to be concerned about?
It's definitely something to, keep an eye on. To really understand what's going on, we got to dig into this whole transformation initiative.
You're right.
Remember those three pillars they kept talking about?
Vaguely.
Brand maximization, margin enhancement, and then operating discipline?
Yeah, I remember thinking it all sounded a bit like corporate buzzword bingo.
Yeah. But it's important to understand what they actually mean, in terms of how Honest does business.
Okay, so break it down for me. What do those actually look like in practice?
All right, so brand maximization. That's all about making the name Honest synonymous with, like, quality and values.
Across all their products.
Exactly. No matter what it is, if it says Honest, you know what you're getting.
Makes sense.
Then you've got margin enhancement, which, well, I think the name kind of speaks for itself.
Basically making more profit from each sale.
Exactly. So streamlining operations, cutting costs, and focusing on their most profitable stuff.
Yeah.
The things that really bring in the money.
Okay, I'm following you. What about that last one, operating discipline?
Imagine, like a ship captain, right? Keeping everything running smoothly, even in rough seas. That's operating discipline.
Ah, so being efficient, making smart choices, keeping the ship tight.
That's it. And that's across the board.
Yeah.
With their resources, their decision-making, everything.
Okay, so they've got these grand plans, but how did they actually put them into action? What did this transformation actually look like for Honest?
Well, a big part of it was restructuring. They streamlined their product offerings, a process they call SKU rationalization.
Which basically means they got rid of some stuff.
You got it. They cleared out the clutter, focused on what sells best and brings in the most profit. They also completely exited Europe and Asia.
Wow, big moves.
And they scaled back on some of their lower margin cleaning products, things that weren't really pulling their weight profit-wise.
So they're becoming more exclusive.
In a way, yeah. It's all about focusing their efforts where it matters most. And speaking of streamlining, there's an interesting side effect of this whole SKU rationalization thing. They ended up donating a ton of their excess inventory.
Really? So, like, their spring cleaning actually helps some folks in need.
Seems like it. The report doesn't go into specifics about where it all went, but it's a nice little bit of good news amidst all the restructuring and changes.
It is. Okay, so we've talked about the big company-wide changes, but there's one massive development that I know everyone is talking about. Jessica Warren stepping down as Chief Creative Officer.
Ah, yes. The elephant in the room.
It feels like more than just a typical executive departure, though, right? Jessica was the face of Honest. Her picture was everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, she co-founded the company. She was a huge part of building the brand. So
Yeah.
her leaving, it marks a real turning point for Honest.
So what happened? What were the terms of her departure?
Well, the report mentioned something called a likeness agreement. Basically, it was a contract that allowed Honest to use Jessica's image and likeness for all the marketing stuff.
Right, her face was on their website, ads, probably even product packaging, right?
Exactly. But when she stepped down, this agreement was terminated. So that means after April 4th, 2025, they can't use her image anymore.
Wow. So there's like an expiration date on Jessica's face.
Pretty much.
What happens to all the inventory they have now with her picture on it? Do they have to pull it all off the shelves?
According to the report, they're obligated to sell whatever they've already got, but only until that April 2025 deadline. After that, who knows?
Maybe a massive clearance sale. I'd be there for that. But seriously, this raises a bigger question. How much did Honest rely on Jessica's personal brand? Will consumers even care that she's gone?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's tough to overstate just how much impact a founder's personal brand can have, especially someone as well-known and respected as Jessica. Some people might be loyal to her specifically, and her leaving could totally influence their buying decisions.
Yeah, it's like when your favorite celebrity chef leaves a restaurant, you're left wondering if the food will ever be as good.
Exactly. But then again, you have to consider that Honest is a well-established brand in its own right now. They've been around for over 10 years. They've got a loyal customer base, and their products are, genuinely well-liked.
So Jessica's departure might not be a fatal blow, but it's definitely a hurdle they'll need to clear carefully.
For sure. It'll be fascinating to see how they navigate this whole transition. Speaking of transitions, I think it's time we move on to the heart of the matter, the financials themselves.
Yes. Let's break down the numbers and see how Honest is actually doing where it really counts. The bottom line. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Money time. This report, it's got numbers everywhere, but what are the key takeaways? The bottom line. Are they making a profit?
All right, let's break it down. First, the good news, wipes. They're killing it. Sales are way up.
Makes sense to me. Every parent I know, they go through wipes like crazy.
It's true. And this actually ties into a bigger trend. Baby products, in general, they're doing really well right now.
So Honest is riding that baby boom wave,
Okay.
at least when it comes to wipes. What about their other stuff? I think the outline mentioned something about skincare being down.
Yeah, skincare revenue did take a bit of a dip this quarter.
Makes you wonder, is that whole clean beauty trend maybe starting to lose some steam?
It's possible. Unfortunately, the report doesn't really go into much detail beyond just the numbers.
So we don't know why skincare might be lagging.
Not from this report, no.
Mhm.
We'd need to look at some broader industry trends to see if, clean beauty is really on the decline or if this is just a honest specific thing.
Good point. All right, so wipes are booming, skincare's a bit shaky. What's the overall picture for their costs?
Well, here's another bit of good news. Their cost of revenue is down significantly for the year so far.
Okay, so lower costs usually means higher profits, right? That's got to be a good sign.
It is. The report highlights a few things that are driving those lower costs. They've managed to get better prices on some of their raw materials.
Okay.
Transportation costs have also come down a bit, thankfully.
And weren't they also working on, like, making their warehouses more efficient?
They were. And it seems to be paying off. They've definitely made some improvements in their warehouse operations, boosted efficiency.
So it sounds like that whole operating discipline thing is actually working. They're getting leaner and meaner.
They are. But...
Oh, there's a but coming. I can feel it.
There is. Despite all these positive changes, Honest is still not profitable.
Seriously. After all that restructuring, all that cost cutting, they're still in the red.
Yep. The numbers don't lie.
So as an investor or just a, curious consumer, should I be worried? What's your take on all this?
I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. Remember, they're still in the middle of this massive transformation. It takes time for all these changes to, really take effect.
So it's like they're renovating a house. The potential's there, but there's still work to be done.
Exactly. And the fact that their costs are trending down, that's a very good sign. Shows they're moving in the right direction. Now it's just about, keep growing that revenue and managing those expenses.
Okay, so wait and see,
Yeah.
for honest. But they're not the only ones dealing with challenges these days, right? I think the outline also mentions some supply chain issues.
Oh, yeah. That's the headache everyone's got right now. We're all dealing with the fallout from inflation, and the transportation industry, well, let's just say it's still struggling to get back on track.
Right, so those are things Honest can't really control, but how are they trying to, mitigate these issues, work around them?
They're being smart about it. They've gotten much more strategic with their inventory management.
So instead of, overstocking.
Exactly. They're being much more careful about only having the right amount on hand, just what they need to meet the demand. They also just opened up a brand new fulfillment center in Las Vegas.
Vegas, baby. Does that help with, like, costs or speed up deliveries? How does that play in?
Potentially both. Having a fulfillment center closer to more of their customers, that could definitely cut down on both shipping times and costs. Plus, it gives them more control over the whole fulfillment process.
Makes sense. So they're trying to get ahead of the curve, but the outline also mentioned a potential issue brewing with their baby clothes supplier, Butterblue. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's kind of tucked away in the report, but it's a detail worth paying attention to. Could have some interesting implications down the line. So they've got this supplier, Butterblue, who handles their baby clothes line.
Honest baby clothing, right? I actually bought some of those clothes from my niece recently. They're super cute.
They are. But here's the thing. Honest actually owns all the inventory for that clothing line.
Even though Butterblue's the one actually managing it.
Yep.
Why would they do that? Seems kind of risky.
It's not entirely clear from the report, but it was probably just part of the deal they worked out with Butterblue. Maybe a way to, like, maintain more control over the product line. But it definitely creates a potential issue. What if, the relationship with Butterblue goes south? Or they decide to part ways?
Yeah, who gets stuck with all those tiny onesies? What happens to the whole clothing line?
Exactly. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
For now, it seems like everything's fine, but this kind of arrangement, it can be tricky.
for sure. So, from wipes to baby clothes, it seems like Honest has got a lot going on behind the scenes.
They do. And we haven't even touched on their marketing strategy yet. They've made some big changes there, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The outline mentions something about a move away from digital marketing. Seems kind of counterintuitive these days.
It might seem that way, but it's actually part of a bigger trend we're seeing with a lot of brands. Remember, in the early days, Honest was totally digital first. They relied heavily on social media, online ads all the hour.
Which makes sense when you think about it. They were a startup trying to make a name for themselves. Digital marketing, that's usually the cheapest way to reach a lot of people.
Exactly. But now they're changing things up. They're putting more of their resources into, like, traditional retail marketing.
So things like, what? In-store displays, partnerships with actual brick-and-mortar stores?
That's it.
Interesting. Why the shift, do you think? Did digital just stop working for them?
I think it's a few things. For one, they're in all these big retailers now, like Target, Walmart, you name it. So it makes sense to really support those partnerships with, some strong in-store marketing. Catch people's eye when they're walking down the aisle.
Right. Meet them where they are.
Exactly. Plus, there's this growing awareness that, relying solely on digital marketing can be kind of risky.
How so?
Well, algorithms change all the time. People are more and more concerned about privacy, and it's just getting harder to cut through the noise online.
I totally feel that. It seems like every day there's a new article about how, like, social media is dying or becoming irrelevant.
Exactly. And then there's also this sense that, consumers are craving more real-world experiences.
Like the opposite of being online.
Pretty much. Shopping in a store, seeing a product in person, touching it, feeling it. It just hits differently than scrolling through an ad on your phone,
It's true. Like the difference between looking at a picture of a delicious meal and actually tasting it.
There you go. So it seems like Honest is adapting to these changing preferences, trying to create a more, holistic brand experience.
Makes sense. But will it pay off? Guess we'll have to see.
Exactly. We'll have to see how their performance looks in the coming quarters, see if this new marketing mix is really working.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Honest's financial performance, their strategic shifts, the challenges they're facing, and of course, that big question mark hanging over Jessica Warren's departure.
It's a complex picture for sure.
It is, but that's what makes it so interesting, right? And as always, we want to bring it back to you, the listener. So, what does all this mean for, the average person out there? The savvy consumer, the curious investor, anyone keeping tabs on the Honest company? What's the takeaway?
Well, I think this report, it's like a snapshot. It shows us where they are right now, but it also brings up a lot of interesting questions about their future, a lot of unknowns.
Like, can they really thrive without Jessica Warren? I mean, she was such a huge part of their brand.
That's the big one, right? Can they keep that same brand identity, that appeal, without her face front and center? Will consumers even care?
And what about all those cost-cutting measures? Can they keep squeezing those margins without, sacrificing quality or, alienating their customers?
Yeah, and will people keep buying wipes at these prices? Because those things aren't cheap.
Exactly. So many questions.
Lots of them. And honestly, the answers, they depend on a whole bunch of factors, right? Like, What's the economy going to do? How confident are consumers feeling overall? And then, of course, there's the big one. What strategic decisions will Honest make going forward?
So basically, this deep dive has given us a lot to chew on, but the story's not over yet.
Nope, far from it. This is a company in transition. They're navigating a tricky market. They're facing some big challenges. It'll be really interesting to see what happens next.
Totally agree. Will they keep evolving? Will they finally hit that elusive profitability? Only time will tell.
Exactly. And that's what makes following a company like Honest so fascinating, in my opinion. They're like this microcosm of all the big trends we're seeing in, the whole consumer goods world. That shift towards purpose-driven brands, the challenges of being ethical and sustainable, it's all there.
And the constant need to innovate, right? Got to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that business, it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about people, it's about values, it's about that constant push and pull between staying true to your mission and adapting to a world that's always changing.
Well said. And for all you listeners out there, keep those questions coming. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of business. Until then, happy investing, and may all your purchases be honest ones.